Did you make any New Year's resolutions? Are you still keeping them? And if not, what happened? Welcome to The Healthy Dude. I'm Kurt Williams. Before you dial out like, I didn't make any resolutions or, I've already busted mine, hold on, because we're going to be really talking about some important stuff. We are once again joined by Blake Avery, registered dietitian at Sentara Health Intensive Cardiac Rehab Program. In a moment, I hope we get time to talk about that, because if you've seen her, whoa, I mean, there's a lot that you can learn from the people who see her and what she can tell you about something that potentially could save your life. All right. And before, first of all, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Did you make any resolutions?
I made a few. They weren't all diet related, if you could believe it.
Really?
Yeah. My big one was that we're cutting back on screen time for my kids. It's a big one for us.
Oh, man.
So we're having...
That would be a good one for me.
Yeah, we're trying to get that habit in early so that they're set up from when they're young. So that's the big one this year.
All right. We're already past... Wait a minute, hold on. Before we get to New Year's resolutions, all right, I got to ask about the changes in the food pyramid.
Okay.
So we are going to come back to New Year's resolutions, but
okay.
Changes in the food pyramid, what's the big takeaway?
The big takeaway that I have is that if you look at these guidelines, these new guidelines compared to 2020, which is the last time they released them, they are more similar than they are different. We are still have the same amount of fruits and vegetables we want to get. We are still emphasizing that. We are still wanting to emphasize less processed foods. That was in the 2020 guidelines.
Okay.
We are still not wanting to have a lot of added sugars. That was in the 2020 guidelines. The pyramid itself...
It looks different.
It looks different. Yeah, we haven't used the food pyramid since 2005, I believe. So it's been quite a long time. And that pyramid looks a little different than if you read the actual guidelines. So I would recommend that everybody actually look at the guidelines. There's a stick of butter on there. There's a big, nice steak on the new food pyramid, which is enticing to people. Like, oh, great, I can have more butter, I can have more steak.
Yes.
But I would recommend you look at the guidelines and really read what they're saying. They're more similar to our old ones than they are different.
So I would imagine that there are a lot of people who probably are not going to look up the guidelines.
No. Probably not.
And maybe we'll just take a glance or two at the pyramid and go, more red meat, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What would you, before we move on to resolutions, what would you hope people, or like three key takeaways about whether they look at the food pyramid and they try to analyze the changes or not? I mean, what is, as far as like what we should be remembering as we eat every day?
The biggest things are that the new pyramid seems to be emphasizing more meat, more protein, and more fats. And the fact of the matter is that Americans are getting plenty of those. That was never a problem that we had. And so I would kind of flip that over and say, what are we not getting enough of? And the fact of the matter is we're not getting enough fruits and vegetables. We're not getting enough whole grains. And those two things really add up to fiber. I said this the last time I was here. I really like fiber. We need more fiber.
It keeps you regular, you know?
We do. It keeps us full. It keeps us regular. There are lower rates of colon cancer for people who have more fiber. There are lower rates of diabetes for people who have more fiber. So we need more of those things. The things that they're emphasizing, there's a good chance you're already getting plenty of them in your diet.
All right. So the things that we need, hopefully those are in our New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
We're already past Quitters Friday, which sounds kind of depressing. This day that is... that's designated like, all right, have you already busted all your New Year's resolutions by now? But why is that? Why do we struggle with our New Year's resolutions?
I think we struggle with our New Year's resolutions because we think that our willpower is going to be different this time than it was last time. I think we're relying on our willpower, and our willpower isn't actually the solution. We think, okay, it's January 1st or whatever the Monday is after New Year's, because let's be honest, that's really when we start, okay? So it's the Monday after New Year's.
That is so true.
And we're like, all right, this is it. I am done with chocolate. And we rely on our willpower. We don't plan. We don't specify. We don't create an environment that helps us reach the goal. And then when it comes to Friday and we failed because there was leftover Christmas chocolate or somebody brought donuts to work, we go, I just couldn't handle it. It was my willpower.
You said something that we don't create an environment. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
I mean that our willpower is kind of a short-term solution, okay? So if somebody brings donuts to the break room and you weren't expecting it, that is when you have to have willpower, right? But if every Tuesday night I have to take 2 kids to 2 different sports and we always get home at 7:30 and I'm always tired, and then that is not, I can't rely on my willpower. That was a long-term problem I could have foreseen. And I could have created a solution to that ahead of time, which was either to meal prep or to plan ahead or to have leftovers ready or to have a bag of frozen steamable vegetables ready. So relying on my willpower when I could have planned ahead is setting myself up to fail. I'm going to end up with takeout.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
It almost seems like you're saying maybe, in addition to making your list of New Year's resolutions, that maybe you also make a list of what are the potential obstacles and challenges that are kind of like part of maybe your last year's routine that you're trying to get away from.
Exactly. We create our New Year's resolutions with our perfect selves in mind, right? The most motivated, excited, ready to go person that I am is the person I am on the Monday after New Year's. But I have to plan the resolution because the unmotivated, tired, stressed out, didn't get enough sleep last night version of me is going to appear at some point, usually sooner than I would prefer. So I have to be ready for that version of myself, not the most perfect, motivated, excited version of myself.
What role does, and it seems like you're kind of touching on it, I mean, what's my motive? I mean, a lot of times it's save money, exercise more, eat better, but what role does, I mean, really specifically kind of identifying what's my motive? What's driving this? And how important is that in identifying what am I trying to accomplish?
Yeah, a lot of times we hear that with weight loss, right? I'm gonna lose weight. Okay, why? Well, I want to feel better. Why? You need to be able to answer that question more than a couple of times. You need to get down to the real reason, because the real reason is
I'm going on a cruise.
Exactly. Or I'm not only that, I'm going on a cruise and I want to be able to get off the boat and walk all the way down that long pier to where I'm going, and I don't want to be winded doing it. And I want to be able to go on the cruise with my kids or my grandkids and do the activities they're doing and spend more time with them. So at the end of the day, the salad I'm eating, it's not because it's going to help me lose weight. It's because it's going to help me spend more time with my kids or my grandkids. That matters so much more. That's where my willpower is going to get stronger. I don't do push-ups to do more push-ups. I do more push-ups so that I can get my groceries in one trip.
But that is such a good thought, that if you write that out so that you can kind of meditate on that, I want to be around so that I can be at my daughter's wedding. Mm-hmm. I want to be healthy enough, not just to be able to see my grandkids get born, but I mean to be able to do stuff with them. And so writing out a motive is also, a key part in sticking to your resolutions.
Yeah, and a lot of people call it your why. And before anybody gets a little like, oh, that sounds a little woo-woo, that sounds a little motivational speaker for me, right? I know it sounds that way, but it's really worth, suspending that little bit of grumpiness to really give it a shot, because I think you might find that it really does work.
All right. We've got much more to talk about, because there's a phrase that has been kind of rolling around in my mind when I knew that we were going to sit down and talk. And, small surrenders, and so that, and also to talk a little more about what you do every day, and what are some of the key takeaways from some of the people who you help, who in some cases have had near-death experiences. When we continue on The Healthy Dude. Small surrenders. What exactly is that, and how can that help you as you're trying to hold on to your New Year's resolutions? And again, maybe whether it's eating healthier or saving more, fitness. What does that look like? Once again, we're joined by Blake Avery, registered dietitian with Sentara Health. The last time that you were on, and I don't know if we asked it during the podcast or it was afterwards, but you mentioned something about wild blueberries. And I'm thinking, well, I eat wild blueberries. I have a blueberry bush out in my backyard, and I go and pick off. And pick off some, and you were saying those aren't wild blueberries.
Yeah.
And so what is that? And I'll kind of make the connection of like that could maybe be a small surrender, a small change. But what's the difference between wild blueberries and the blueberries that I thought were wild because I'm picking them out in the wild?
So wild blueberries are a different type of blueberry plant, and you can usually find them frozen in our area, sometimes fresh, but it's really tricky, and they have a lot more antioxidants than regular blueberries. To be clear, we love regular blueberries.
Yes.
If you want to keep eating regular blueberries, you should.
Yes.
They're fantastic. But these just happen to have more antioxidants. I'm not remembering off the top of my head how many more, but it's a certain percentage more. And I was giving them to my kids as like a frozen treat, and they could have them as a snack. And I mentioned them to you, and I could see the fireworks.
Yeah, well, I'm like thinking, you're right. We do not want to discourage people from eating regular blueberries because they are packed with all kinds of nutrients. But I'm thinking, why not try the blueberries that have greater antioxidants?
And they're smaller,
Yes.
and they have like the reason I had them for my kids is they're a little smaller, so they're a little bit easier for them to eat, and they're darker. They're like a dark purple color, and that's where the antioxidants are in that dark purple color. They're fantastic.
You're right. I found them in the frozen section, big old bag, and I'm trying to remember the price of it. But I mean, it's like you really hold on to that bag for a while,
yeah. It'll
unless
last
you're
you a
just
while.
mowing through them, and so it may seem like I don't know, it's $12 or
Yeah, I think
$15 or.
the last time I looked, they were $9.99
Yeah.
at my local Walmart,
Yeah.
actually. So they're not terrible.
But when you do the math of how many baskets of the still good blueberries that you get, but to me, I was thinking that could be an example of what small change can we do that can be better for our health, and it's with. I mean, if you're maybe saving $100 a paycheck, maybe bump it up to $125 or $150, and then over time, it's that cumulative impact of those small surrenders. You mentioned reduced screen time is something that you're working on with your kids versus cold turkey no screen time.
Yeah, I don't think it works
Yeah.
for most people. I think when you say I'm never eating chocolate again, I'm not going to look at my phone, I'm not going to use social media, you're setting yourself up to fail, right?
Yeah.
So for my kids, for example, we have set it up now where when we get home, it's an hour of no TV, no screens. My daughter's only 6, but she's going to do a little bit of homework. We're going to play with the blocks. We're going to do some playtime. Then as we're winding down, maybe we can have some more. A lot of times that hour turns into longer because they don't miss it when they don't have it. It's the same thing with exercise, right? A lot of times if I'm having a really hard day, I do the 5-minute rule. Nope, told myself I was going to go outside today and walk or run or whatever it looks like. I just have to do it for 5 minutes. That's it. Some days 5 minutes is what I've got. I've got 5 minutes. I'm going 2.5 minutes away from my house and 2.5 minutes back. But a lot of days I get outside, my blood starts pumping, I feel good. I'm like, oh, is that a bird I hear? Is the sun out? And then that 5 minutes turns into 10 or 15. So those small things will add up, but the small things make it easier to do the bigger things too. It goes both ways.
And so I would imagine when it comes to eating healthier, that if you're, all right, I'm just going to banish all junk food from the home. That's maybe not realistic, or maybe you should take small steps, small surrenders to maybe kind of get to that place where.
Yeah, I think so when we're setting our goals, 2 things. We want them to be action oriented, meaning we're not taking something away from ourselves. So the goal isn't to, I keep saying chocolate. I really like chocolate, okay. The goal isn't to take away chocolate forever because it's just not going to happen. What are you thinking about the minute that you say that to yourself?
Right. I need more chocolate.
But maybe I go, oh yeah, every night at 8 o'clock, I really want chocolate ice cream and I need to figure this out. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to set it up so, okay, this week I'm going to have ice cream twice. On Tuesday and Friday, I'm going to have ice cream after dinner and it's going to be chocolate ice cream. The other nights I'm going to have a yogurt, I'm going to have a piece of fruit, and swap it out for a healthier option. So instead of taking something away, you're adding something back in. So action-oriented goals are really key here. And then that brings me back to setting up your environment, which is like, I'm going to take the junk food out of my house. That's easy to say, but we have kids, we have spouses, right? Like we can't just take everything out of our house that doesn't work for us and then not have our family have certain things that they might like. So I find that to be, it's a good strategy if you can do it, but in my experience, it's really important to try to work on, being able to be near the Oreos. Because if they're...
You're right, because you're right. I mean, if you do get to work and you go into the break room and there's like, oh my God, donuts, cookies, all kinds of stuff that I have removed from my house.
Yeah.
And then it's like, boy, that's a real test of your willpower.
Right.
Willpower right then.
And then you accidentally had 3. And then you're like, well, now
I won't get these
ruined.
at home, so I need to stock up.
Yeah. No, everything's terrible. A good way to look at that is to ask yourself, like, is this donut really worth it? And what I mean by that is I don't mean the calories. I don't mean the fat. I mean, is this donut going to taste so good that I'm going to have this one donut and then be happy for the rest of the week or the rest of the month? A lot of times, those break room donuts aren't it. A lot of times they've been there for a couple hours. Somebody already got the good ones. The one that's left is not the one you wanted. So I really want that donut, but it's not going to be worth it. So on Saturday, I'm going to take the kids to the local place that I really like, and I'm going to get a donut, and we're going to enjoy it as a family. You still get that thing, but it's something really good that you're enjoying, and that's going to help you to stay on track, because I'm not going to need that break room donut. I'm not going to need to go through the Dunkin' drive-thru and get a donut, because I've got this thing I'm planning ahead of time. So being strategic with the treats helps you to stay on track the rest of the time.
How many, from treats to veggies and fruit. So like, what is a realistic and beneficial goal to have as far as veggies and fruits a day?
So the servings per day are, we want 2.5 to 3 cups of vegetables is the goal. However, people are starting from all different numbers, right? This is a full confession moment. I did not eat vegetables regularly until I was 20.
Wow.
My mom thinks it's so funny that I'm a dietitian. She couldn't get me to eat a vegetable for 18 years. So I started from 0, and I had to work my way up. So if somebody had said to me, hey, you got to get 3 cups of vegetables in, I would be like, okay, that's not happening. So you need to ask where you're at now and be honest with yourself. And then you go from there. 1 serving a day. 1 serving, you're adding a serving every day for a week. Then next week you can reassess. Then the next week you can go from there. But I'm going to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour is
okay.
Not
kind
a
of
good
back
plan.
to those small surrenders. I mean, gradually work your way up. And I know we got to toss to a break. But again, when we say like a serving, like is that like 1 apple, 1 banana?
Yeah, just about. So for fruit, it's about a cup for a serving. So that's a cup of strawberries, cup of blueberries, 1 banana, 1 apple, 1 orange. For vegetables, it's same thing, 1 cup. So we've got a cup is broccoli, spinach, any of those. So that kind of keeps it a little simple.
And again, quickly, as far as ideally what we're working up to is how many servings for veggies and how many servings for fruit?
So 2.5 to 3 cups for veggies.
Okay.
And then 2 to 3 cups of fruit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, because I really want to talk a little bit about what you do and some of the people who you have seen, and in some cases who have had near-death experiences, and what are some of the big takeaways as far as what you do for Sentara Health. We're back right after this. Welcome back to The Healthy Dude. Continuing our conversation with Blake Avery, a registered dietitian with Sentara OBC, their intensive cardiac rehab program. Meaning what?
So if you have qualified to come through the intensive cardiac rehab program, you have had some kind of heart event, meaning that you might have had a heart attack, an open heart surgery, you might have heart failure, you may have had a heart transplant. But you come through, and part of the program is exercising, getting that heart stronger, doing cardiovascular exercise, and then they come and do education afterwards. And I'm part of that, along with the exercise physiologists and the nurses are teaching as well.
But they're put on like a pretty restrictive diet.
Oh yeah, it's no joke. It is no joke. It's very
low
some
in
of the
people
sodium.
who you have seen have had near-death experiences.
I mean, we have folks who come through the program who have been revived. Their heart stopped and they were revived through our great healthcare teams or with Good Samaritans, and they come to us and they're really motivated to make some changes so that something like that doesn't happen again.
Top 3 takeaways from these people who you work with? I think you mentioned like it's a really low sodium diet. Why?
Yes.
Why?
Sodium is in tons of our food right now, especially all of our processed food has a lot of added sodium. And sodium is one of the things that can really affect our blood pressure. So, with blood pressure, it's not something you usually have symptoms of until you start to have complications years later. So you can have high blood pressure and not even know it. Sodium is one of the biggest things we can do to lower our blood pressure and lowering our total sodium. So for my folks in cardiac rehab, their goal is 1,500 milligrams per day. And for the general public, the goal is 2,300 milligrams per day.
All right. So that people, even though as pleasant as you are, don't have to come and see you. Beyond the low sodium, what else do you really try to drive home with these patients?
Well, we talk a lot about saturated fat because saturated fat is a big driver of higher cholesterol. A lot of the folks who come through have high cholesterol.
Does it mean you have to be a label reader, though, to kind of see, like, what's the poly, mono? I mean, there's like a lot of fats on the back of the label.
Yeah, I recommend you take a look. Doesn't mean you have to count. It doesn't mean you have to do it every single time. But just, these are the things I buy on a regular basis. I'm just going to take a peek at the saturated fat. You don't have to have your degree and know what every single number means. But, the saturated fat is this. The sodium is this. 1,500 is the goal. I've looked at things that the sodium is 2,200 for a serving. Oh, I'm putting that right back on the shelf. So just a glance. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to bring your calculator and your notepad to do it.
But when you see, what kind of number do you want to, as far as saturated fats, do you want to stay away from? Like if you're reading the label of something.
So the dietary guidelines, which we talked about at the beginning, the dietary guidelines are to eat less than 10% of your total calories from saturated fat. Those have been the guidelines since the 1980s. To do the math so that you don't have to.
Yeah.
If you're eating 2,000 calories a day, that's about 22 grams of saturated fat.
Ooh.
Now,
That's a small amount.
somebody's going to look at their label of something and go, oh my gosh. Start by decreasing slowly, small surrenders. Yes, exactly. And then go from there. That 20 number might not be realistic right now, but anything you can lower it, especially if you have family history of heart disease or if your doctor said you had elevated cholesterol, can really make a big difference.
You mentioned, I guess, exercise is talked about in this program, and I guess that's also an area where small surrenders can come in, because you mentioned maybe you do only have time for a 5-minute walk, but maybe it turns into maybe a 10-minute walk. Ideally, you hear about you want to get your heart rate up. What do we want to keep in mind about that, about the small surrenders as far as exercise and fitness?
So for the recommendations for exercise, we really want to get about 150 minutes of exercise per week. And this is moderate exercise, meaning that you're a little bit out of breath, but you're not huffing and puffing. You're not sprinting down a football field. This is a brisk walk for most people. And that translates to 30 minutes 5 times per week. That is what we work up to in cardiac rehab. By the end of the program, they're doing 150 minutes of exercise every week. And that's going to help us get our heart stronger. And I want to drive this point home the most, and that is that exercise is good for you regardless of what it does to the size of your body, regardless of how it affects the scale.
So good.
It helps your blood pressure. It helps your mood. It releases feel-good hormones. It helps your body composition, meaning that you get better muscle tissue. You lose some of the unhealthy fat. Even if the scale doesn't change, all of those things are happening. And so if you're not really best friends with the scale, I really understand that. The scale can be really mean. So we can kind of brush that to the side and know that working on increasing our exercise is helping us on a cellular level that we can't really see. It's such a big deal.
No, I'm so glad you said that, because especially when people are thinking about New Year's resolutions and, they've been stepping on the scale and they don't see anything, and maybe it's even going in the wrong direction. And that's got to be so disheartening. But that's such a valid point, that even if you don't see a change in the scale, what it is doing to your body.
Yeah, pick the things that you can measure that are not just numbers on the scale, but also how am I feeling? Did I maybe measure my waistline? My waistline went down an inch, but the scale didn't move. Well, I'm going to go by that number. I'm not going to go by the number on the scale. Or, I actually was able to walk up the stairs without getting winded. write that down, measure it, think about it, because that's going to be a reward for your brain. Your brain's going to celebrate that with you, and you're going to be able to keep doing it. If you're doing something that is causing you to talk negatively to yourself, or every time you step on the scale you feel bad about yourself, you're much more likely to not reach your goals.
And maybe evaluate how frequently you're stepping on the scale. Real quickly, because I'm thinking maybe we're out of time. Accountability partner. Are those good to have if you're trying to have someone who can kind of like, hold you accountable or at least encourage you regarding your resolutions?
100%. But here, you have to be honest with yourself here, because we all have that friend who, if we called and we said, I've decided I'm eating a whole package of Oreos, that friend would be like, you should. So don't make that friend your accountability partner. We need that friend too. That friend is a great friend. But you got to make somebody your accountability partner who's going to actually be there for the accountability part. And if you don't have somebody like that, that's okay. Personal trainers, dietitians can all be great. There's walking groups and running groups. There's groups on social media you can join that might help with the accountability. If everybody in your life is going to go, yeah, the whole gallon of ice cream's a great idea.
You go, girl. You have earned that whole package of Oreos.
Be honest with yourself about which friend is going to work there.
They said choose an accountability partner. They didn't say whether it really had to be someone who was going to hold me accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're only, let's walk together before work, and if your friend says, oh yeah, I'm not getting up, you have to be ready to have that. You have to go, why am I doing this? I'm not doing this for my friend. I'm doing this because, go back to that why we talked about earlier.
The why.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Blake, it is always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
So we look forward to having you back soon. Blake Avery, registered dietitian at Sentara Health, their intensive cardiac rehab program. Thank you so much for joining us. And we thank you for joining us on The Healthy Dude.